I'm Kylie Ross-Seibert, and today's episode of Retailers Podcast is brought to you by the Mitza Group. Mitza Group is a family-owned full-service management and hospitality company based in Hampton Roads. Their portfolio of 50-plus properties spans restaurants, hospitality, fast food, and retail categories, and employs over 500 people in the local community. So visit mitzagroup.com for more information. Today, we are joined by Chef Win from Nuttall. Is it Nuttall?
Nuttall Store.
Okay, Country Store in Wareneck in Virginia. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So we'll get started, but first of all, I call you Chef Win, but your full name is Winslow.
Yes.
Yeah. Goodier?
Goodier.
Goodier. So please tell us a little about yourself and Nuttall.
Nuttall Store, how I wound up here is I've been a chef. I was actually went to culinary school and was recruited by Colonial Williamsburg back, let's just say a long time ago. And so I've been in the area. I have been involved with Nuttall Store for some time. It's run, the building and the grounds are actually owned by a nonprofit. And so I was on the board of directors for a number of years. They asked me to be on to kind of guide them and where they wanted to go with the food. They were, it's a old general store, and they were doing a little bit of food, but they wanted to know how to expand on that. So I was helping them. I always wanted to do something here because it's such a neat old place, but it was so small that you really couldn't do the volume. And so we wound up expanding the kitchen, and wasn't until I was standing in that part with just their bare walls and plywood floor that I thought, you know what, maybe I can do something. Never had the urge to have like my own restaurant or something, but this place was unique.
Wow. Okay. So, and I know that, yeah, the building is like historic. Tell us a little bit about the location and this building and the history of that, if you can. I know that a lot of it's on the website if people are interested, but yeah, I'd love to hear it from you.
It's funny because we're down. Tell everybody that you have to be coming here to get here because we're not on the way to anything. Wareneck is just outside of Gloucester Courthouse, and it's basically one road in, road out. Across from the store, and you can't see anymore because the trees are grown up, is the Ware River. It's actually very close, and there used to be a steamship dock here. And that's how years ago, before the highway system, that's how things moved around the bay. So the store was built because of the steamship dock. And the store opened in 1868 and has never closed.
Okay, so that building is quite historic. And I presume that it's been through a number of owners. So when did you get involved? And also, is it Deanna? When did she sort of come into the business too?
Deanna is our store manager. She's been here, I think, for 13 or 14 years now. The store is actually technically called Wareneck Store, but a gentleman by the name of Rudy Nuttall had it for about 60 years, from right after World War II until early 2000s, I think 2002. So everybody knows it as Nuttall Store or Rudy's. And there's just, yeah, technically we're Wareneck Store, but there's no reason to change the name. So that, and then she was brought over here. She used to work in Yorktown, and so they brought her over to run the front of the store. I came along in, let's see, I've been here since June of 2019 as the chef. Before that, it was probably about 5 years before that, I was on the board of directors.
Okay, so where are you from originally?
Originally, I grew up on a farm in southeast Pennsylvania. We also had an old house on the eastern shore of Maryland, and once I got old enough, I pretty much lived there. I fell in love with the water. I was a waterman before I went to culinary school. I crabbed and tunnel for oysters. So then fast forward, I went to Johnson Wales University in Rhode Island. Thought Rhode Island was beautiful, but I didn't want to stay there. The Northeast, people can be a bit aggressive, and that wasn't. They were a little bit more laid back. So when Colonial Williamsburg sent me an offer letter, that's where I came.
Okay, so you worked for Colonial Williamsburg for a while. Okay.
Mhm.
And was it, in terms of like qualifications and so on, you've obviously trained somewhat in your profession. Tell us a little bit about that side of things.
Well, when you go through culinary school, despite what some people think, you're just a well-educated cook. That's it. Where you take it after that is really up to you. And I chose the path through some mentors of being involved with the American Culinary Federation, and they're the ones who certify cooks and chefs across the United States.
Okay.
And I worked on getting the different certifications, and it's really no different than, you know, you want your electrician to have all the credentials and do the continuous studying, so they're up on codes and everything, and you could be, you know, every profession has certifications,
Right.
and people that pursue that wind up doing better, because when you, and even if you're applying for a job, when you have a certification, you have a proven level that is documented, because we all know resumes can be, you know, creative writing sometimes. And so this way, you know, it gives you some legitimacy, and it's, you know, it's not easy, it's tough. And so I decided to go with that route. And there are plenty of chefs, good chefs out there that aren't certified, that have worked and done things, and they decided not to do that. This is just, you know, like I said, because of my mentors and because of the environment I was in, that's the path I chose.
Okay. So tell me then, do the requirements change when you have to be like recertified? Did things really change that much?
Not with the basics. You do have to, the recertification is you have to have so many points every 5 years, and it's all education, or for the most part, education points. So you go to seminars, you go to conferences, you do online classes so that you're kept up with local trend or current trends. And you have to take an 8-hour sanitation class every 8 hours. That's a requirement. So you have to, the continuing education is extremely important, that so that you don't grow stale.
Okay, that's interesting. So what sort of cuisine is your favorite?
That's a tough question. It's like somebody says, "What's your specialty?" And I think that went out years ago. If you were a chef at a restaurant, you're chef at a really good Italian restaurant, obviously your you know, specialty is Italian.
Right.
You get to where you're running hotels and country clubs and bigger places, you have to know how to do everything pretty much, and you don't have a specialty. You're required to know not everything about everything, but a lot about it.
Right.
So I think really my favorite cuisine is where am I at the time? If I'm in, you know, Charleston, then I want low country cuisine, you know, and specialize here in local cuisine for the most part. And that to me is more intriguing because you taste the local ingredients. You know, if I'm going to a different city, I'm not going to go to a chain restaurant to eat. I want to find out what their, you know, what their local things are they're cooking. I never order a steak when I go out, because I can do that at home.
Right.
Show me something interesting from the area. That to me I find very interesting.
Yeah. And also, I mean, your comment about needing to know for your profession, like different types of cuisines, is I hear the word fusion a lot. Is that because also you are having the requirement to bring the different types of food together to create new dishes all the time? Is that something that you think about?
Well, there's that, and one of the cool things about this business is the diversity in kitchens, which has always been there. I know there's been this big push for diversity, and I get a little like the kitchens have been the most diverse environment for decades. Where so you get you know, maybe it's a cook from Mexico that makes an employee meal that is just, you know, incredible. So you take a little bit from him, or it could be, I have had, you know, British sous chefs that have shown me things, because I've never been to England, but they've done things. So you get that little bit of, it's like, okay, you know what, we can take that, but kind of use, since we don't have this particular ingredient, why don't we try? I mean, if we're not doing it with lamb because, there's only a certain amount of people that like lamb, maybe we switch it out with pork and do something. So just, it's this constant, it's because of the different personalities, I think, in it. And some of it has to do with location, but it's, if you're in California, they have incredible fusion cuisine because of the Asian and the Hispanic influence there.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to the middle of the country, not so much. Maybe it depends on the city. So it really has to do with location.
Right. And do you, with your dishes and the area that you are based in, is there adventurous people? Do you get to experiment with foods, or is it pretty much you've been there for, well, the institution has been there for so long and the locals say, well, we don't want it to change? So
there is some of that. And we do a lot of meals to go, dinners to go, and that tends to be more home cooking type than comfort food is what really tends to sell and move out of here. And we do have some of our local clientele is older, and so they may be widowed or they just don't want to cook at a certain time and point in time in their lives. And so that's where a lot of that goes. Now we have our crowds from Richmond, and there's a lot of Airbnbs out here. So we have people from all over that are coming. And so they're a bit more adventurous. And it tends to flow with the time of year, summertime, our busier time. We do a little bit more adventurous things because our clientele is so different and so varied. So we can experiment with things like that, and do that. But especially this time of year, it's like give me mashed potatoes, make some lasagna, do that type of thing, which everybody, we sell out all the time. So, but it really does depend on the time of year.
So do you really, it sounds like there is a bit of a, well, in a lot of places, especially like in places like Virginia Beach, there's like an off season, but it sounds like your locals really keep you going through the quieter times, which must be important too. So going back a step, so in terms of your career, what would you say some major hurdles have been to get where you are?
I would think that, this is a great area, but if you were in a major city, probably more opportunities. But then that would be it. But the quality of life outdoes that. Couldn't imagine myself in some place like New York City or Chicago or something like that, where the cuisine is incredible.
So your quality of life is really important.
Yeah, it really is. So there was, you have to be kind of content with who you are. And for a while, when you're younger, there's the competitive things. I'm going to be the best in the way out to everybody, and that's a chef mindset. And I was there for a while, and it just, there was only so many places you go that were very visible, and some of them worked out, some of them, there's places that were very difficult to work for. But as far as any other hurdles, I mean, to me, it's you work hard and are rewarded for it. And if you're in a place that does not recognize that, then you're next place. But I think you're your own hurdle. If you're stuck in some place and not happy with it, you've got to look around and change.
So do you think that from when you started out that things have changed for the people who have started out now? Would you say that there is just as good a career as being a chef as it was?
I would say so, because it was there was a different mindset when I first started. Kitchens were pretty brutal. They're still tough. I mean, it's a tough business to be in. Yeah. I think, certainly with the bigger companies, the benefits are much better. You can get a day off once in a while. There's still some places, I've got friends in very well-known places that are working 60, 70 hours. which is just, that used to be the norm. And the only thing that was important is the job itself. They didn't care, if you had a family, or they didn't care about anything else. And not everywhere is like that. A lot of people, some chefs were like that. But I think that's changing. And I think recently it's actually because you can't get staff. So what's going to, attract, how are you going to attract workers if you're in the same old mindset and everything? Because somebody's going to be willing to say, okay, you know what, you get one weekend off a year, because in this business, Saturday and Sundays, no, you never do. Or you give them a Sunday or something, or you're willing to work around it, which before that that was not part of it.
Yeah.
So I think, the versatility now where I don't want to say you have to do it, because it sounds like you're being forced. You should do it anyway. But I think now it's become a choice.
True. And do you think that also involves wages as well?
Yes.
There's a lot to and I mean, you see restaurants shutting their doors, who have made it through COVID, but are now shutting their doors, which it's like, why do you think that is?
Boy, I'm going to sound like an old man if I say that the work ethic isn't there anymore.
You can say what you like.
I grew up where when I was 12, I told my dad I wanted this bike, and all this stuff, and he looked at me and he said, "The farm's next door." So I went to go work for the farmer next door, making 50 cents an hour. So so I've been working ever since I've been 12.
Right.
That's just the way. But there's a lot of people not working out there. There's a lot of people. I think expectations and standards have been lowered for a long time, and so there's a lot of, to me, it's very rewarding. Hard work's very rewarding to see results, and I think that's not with everybody, but the percentage is definitely not like it used to, where you get satisfaction out of a job well done. Where now it's like, what are you going to do? That's obviously,
It was always such a good first job to go work in a kitchen, part time, on the weekends, get that little bit of extra money. But it just seems so much harder to get people like that, because
it's not a fun.
It's more down the street from a major chain, and I think money's a big part of it. But the work ethic too, I think, does make a difference.
And if the parents are supporting the kids, then that's their worthy incentive. Entry-level positions in restaurant business, brutal. I mean, dishwashing has got to be one of the first jobs, but you go into that was how I started out, dishwasher, and
that's where most people did. That was the first job you got to do.
The chef at the time didn't speak a word of English. We saw what I was doing with that, and so he would start to, and I wanted to know what he was doing, just looking, and so he'd get me to start peeling shallots, chopping parsley. I thought it was very simple. So there was, even though it was just this menial stuff, it was better than washing dishes. So that's, and it kind of there. So I just think it's missing, and I don't know from this end how to change it, except for you provide an environment where, you're supportive of the people that work for you. Got somebody now young that's one of the people working for me. He's great. It took a little while to kind of bring him out of the show, but he's really good at to learn, but you provide that environment. I'm not by any means the chef I was 23 years ago. I remember the authoritarian, and throwing pots, that kind of thing. And if that was me, it's not me anymore.
Hello, your age.
Not that I don't voice my opinion loudly, but it's not the same thing.
Yeah. So in terms of then where you want to go yourself. I mean, you've got as many years as you want to keep going and working in the industry. So in terms of like this business, where do you want to develop? What do you want to do? Are you satisfied? Like, I mean, the work-life balance thing is really important, it sounds to you. So it could be that you just want to stay with what you're doing because you're happy with it. I just interesting to hear from you.
I am happy with what I'm doing. There is a balance, especially with the store, because we're closed on Sundays. We're not open at night. Now we do things once in a while, but that's not the norm. So even though I work, every Saturday at 5 o'clock, or if I was in a restaurant or something, then that's the case. My goal here is to do this for as long as it's fun. I do want to try to find somebody time to take my place. I always want to be a part of this, but maybe not the day-to-day things. So to find protege or something to take this on.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not anything soon. As far as professionally, there are things I want to do. One of which is another level of certification, and I don't need it. Just it's there, and I want just because.
What sort of certification?
Well, right now, it's funny we're doing this podcast. I'm certified as a certified executive chef, and I've got notification today that I recertified that for another years. I've been certified executive chef for 29 years. And I looked it up to write something about it. I can't believe it's been that long. There is
your sound went a bit funny then, so I didn't quite hear what you said. You said so you got certified for another 5 years.
Right. And certified as an executive chef for another 5 years. And I've been a certified executive chef for 29 years so far.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, I looked at that and went, okay, that's why the gray hair. Wasn't been that long. There is I'm going to go forward and get a certification for World Master Chef. Not because I need it for here or anything. I just want to do it for myself.
Is it a difficult thing? Do many people actually achieve it?
It's a lot of documentation, a lot of work to it. There's two forms of certified master chef. There's the one through the American Culinary Federation, which is very intense, almost like a competition style cooking test, which takes about 10 days, and probably less than 5% of people pass that. The World Master Chef is more based on your experience and how you are overall can you manage your place? Do you know the financials? You still have to do cooking and cooking, you have to, but it's kind of a broader based thing. And so that's the one.
Are you involved in that part of it with the financials and everything?
Yes.
Currently, okay. And so you were saying Deanna runs the retail part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So does it cross over in terms of are you making things that are then sold in the store?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of crossover to it, and we work really well together. She's basically, if you think of a restaurant, she's front of the house, on back of that. But also bring in one of our things that we do is local ingredients, local things to some store, and I bring in a lot of that, and local wines, Virginia wines.
Okay, so you are stocking things around.
Yes, for me, local, it's got to be good, not just local, because it's got to be a good quality. Locals, and for me, local is Virginia, West Virginia, North Carolina, Maryland. I'm not one of those guys the farm table guys that can tell you the name of the cow that made the cheese. It's just, and some people do that, and that's fine, but it's just not me. So local is this area, and things. There's something like we carry grains like pancake mix and grits and cornmeal from a company called Deep Roots Milling, which is out in Amherst County. Mm-hmm. And in last working water wheel mill in the state. The guy that's the miller is like a 5th generation miller. They make incredible stuff, and so it's not just the product, which product's good, it's the story that goes with it. And then we carry brought props like Barrier Island Sea Salt. There's a couple that lives on the eastern shore. They go out in a boat with huge barrels out in the ocean, bring in seawater, and dehydrate it down, and you get this flaky salt. Yeah, and it's just amazing stuff. And you know, there's I've got some products in West Virginia and some other things from around the state that are just amazing. But you know what we're really known for is our meats. That's drawn in a tremendous amount of people, and that's all from in-state.
Sorry, from interstate, did you say?
From in-state here in Virginia.
Okay, all right. So you get it from different farms?
Well, the beef all comes from Seven Hills, which is a slaughterhouse in Lynchburg. They contract with Area Angus Farms, and that's all of our beef comes from. I've had tried it a few years back, and we raised cattle when I was a kid, 3 or 4 head a year for friends and family. And this to me tastes like that. And all the years I've been in this business, I've never tasted that since I was a kid. It's like in Ratatouille, when what's his name eats the ratatouille and he flashes back to his childhood. That's what it was like to me.
Right.
You know, the pork we use is from Automile Farms in Waynesboro, and it comes straight off the farm. And my wife and I went up there, I guess a year and a half ago, to go visit. And the owner, Clay, says, "Are you comfortable on a 4-wheeler?" Yeah, sure. So we spent 3.5 hours on a 4-wheeler with him following around the farm, and he would grab some clover out of the field and go, "Here, taste this." Oh, okay. Taste that. And we go somewhere else, and the pigs are like in the woods eating acorns. And then we go to another spot, and we go in this field, all this dried corn. And he got this here corn. It's just this red corn. It's called Bloody Butcher. And he took a few kernels off. He said, "Here, eat this." Okay. So I tasted that. The pork. So
how do you find all these people then? Like, is it like word of mouth?
It's a little bit, but research, and it's just, but it's the story, it's stuff, and the pork doesn't taste like the pork you get from the grocery store. It's which is to me is tasteless. It could be chicken breast. You know, and this stuff you taste and you're like, God, now is it the same price? No, it's more expensive because of the process. It's sustainable, it's all those things, but our clientele knows that what I get in is not the same as what you get in the grocery store. And it can't be. We're too small to compete with the big stores. So and that was something that came with COVID. We were one of the few places in Gloucester that had meat, because I buy from restaurant supply. All the restaurants closed up. It was no problem for me to get an order. But the grocery store supply chain is different. So when nobody had any meat, we had it. And people started coming like crazy. And it was word of mouth. I didn't dare. I do all of our social media. I didn't dare put it on Facebook because we were getting overwhelmed and I didn't know what happened. But I did.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, now's the time to upgrade stuff, because when this is all over, I want them to go back to the different stores and you know what? This isn't as good. And so that's what's happening. You've got to do something to set yourself apart, no matter what business you're in.
Mm-hmm. And so of a lot of those people, have they stuck around? They've become regular customers now?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
And we've with the social media, which is, we are 3.5 miles down a country road. You don't know we're here. So once I started doing that, that's what has really built us up. And I have people that come from Virginia Beach for our steaks. And we become a lunch destination. We have a lot of people from Williamsburg coming. We have people from Charlottesville. I had a few months back that drove down from Winchester for the day. Like, that trip down is beautiful, but that trip back is not. One day. So, but it's, how did you find out? So it's Facebook, it's Instagram. We have our own YouTube channel. But that's what has really
digital.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great. I know we're probably run a little bit over time, but I feel like just tell me one thing that we don't know about you that well, most people don't know about you.
Well, for 8 years, I cooked for one of the NASCAR teams. I was on the pit crew. So cooking got me into that. And then I did that for, well, that was the biggest adrenaline I think I've ever
Yeah,
done.
my husband would love to talk. He's so into NASCAR. Oh, that's awesome. Well, it sounds like you've had a very colored and flavorful, like, just journey along the way, which is really exciting. I hope to be able to make it up there, maybe on a day trip as well. So thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Tell us tell us the address and how they can find out more about Nuttall's.
Okay, the address is 6495 Ware Neck Road. It's just, you go to Gloucester Courthouse and you go on the 14 heading towards Matthews. We're a couple miles down the road there. The Facebook, Instagram is all at Nuttall Store.
Mhm.
YouTube is Nuttall Store. Everything is Nuttall Store, and the website is nuttallstore.com.
That is very handy. So
I do all the social media, so I wanted to make it as simple as possible.
not too much to have to remember. So that's great. Well, thanks again. And you've been listening to the Retailers Podcast. And if you've enjoyed what you've heard, you can find more of our podcasts on our Retail Alliance YouTube channel. Yes, we have our own too. So all of our social is Retail Alliance. So it should be fairly easy to find. So thanks for listening.